Hello and welcome to your ST310 mini lesson on Chapter 2, Medication Development, Regulation, and Resources. We have some learning objectives. We're going to look at terms, abbreviations. We're going to talk about internal, federal, state, and local roles. We have to discuss the Joint Commission's role, as well as medication development and pharmacogenetics and pharmacogenomics. But we're not done. We have to discuss medication labeling, listing the information that's found on medication labels, and discussing medication information from various pharmacology resources. Right off the bat, we look at international laws. We talk about the role of WHO in drug regulation and surgery guidelines. Now, WHO is an agency of the United Nations providing global leadership on health matters. It does not have the authority to enforce drug laws, but it does issue recommendations and guidelines that countries can choose to adopt. But WHO publishes important information such as the World Health Report, which provides global health statistics and insights, as well as guidelines for safe surgery, which aim to improve surgical outcomes and safety across healthcare systems. Now, drug control differs from country to country. Some countries have very strict drug laws and closely regulate the development, the distribution, and the use of medications. Other countries may have, let's say, less stringent regulations, which can result in varying levels of oversight and safety in drugs. Now, while the World Health Organization offers global standards and best practices, the enforcement of drug laws is the responsibility of individual countries. This means that drug safety regulations, availability, and control can significantly vary depending on national laws. So what does the federal and states do? Starting off with federal. The federal government, through agencies like the FDA and DEA, ensure that medications are safe, effective, and labeled correctly. It establishes nationwide standards for drug manufacturing, marketing, and distribution to ensure consistent safety and quality across the United States. Now, each state has its own laws that regulate the medical profession, including how we as surgical technologists can assist in handling medications. Now, state laws govern how medications are ordered, dispensed, and administered, which can vary from state to state. For example, one state may allow us as surgical techs to assist more directly in medication administration, while another may restrict it. Now, we look at key federal drugs and amendments. The first one we're going to look at is that Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906, the very first one you see. It set standards for quality and labeling of foods and drugs, ensuring products were not altered. The second one, the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act of 1938, required animal testing to prove drug effectiveness and safety before FDA approval for marketing. The Durham-Humphrey Amendments of 1952 defined the differences between prescription and over-the-counter drugs. Now, the prescription drugs now required a physician's order. You can't just go and say, I have a prescription. Now they needed physical evidence, something in black and white. And then the Controlled Substance Act 1 through 5, 1970, created drug schedules. Now these are all based on abuse, potential, and medical use. So you can see from the slide, the schedules C1 through C5 gives you different examples and the descriptions. It is going to be really important that you're able to identify these. You may see these in our live session as a pop-up question, and they could populate your knowledge check questions as well as that weekly quiz. So make sure you're able to differentiate between the schedule of controlled substances. Now, the Controlled Substances Act is regulated by the DEA, which is a division of the Department of Justice that was established in 1973. The DEA plays a key role in drug regulation, particularly with opioids or narcotics used in surgery. Now, when opioids are administered, careful recording is required, including patient's name, patient's date, and individuals involved in obtaining and administering the medication. The DEA's regulations ensure drug control and consumer safety, as well as the fact that healthcare institutions must follow DEA standards for the handling and storage of controlled substances. OSHA, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, is another department of labor. The 2001 Occupational Exposure of Bloodborne Pathogens standard impacts us as surgical techs by requiring employers to provide post-exposure plans following CDC guidelines. CDC, which is the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, is a part of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS. The CDC is the leading federal agency for disease prevention and issues drug recommendations for those exposed to blood-borne pathogens. We have our prophylactic policy of 1995, where you'll get ZDV, which is 600 milligrams per day. You'll get 3TC, which is another drug, 150 milligrams twice daily for 4 weeks. And then there's things to keep in mind. The medication should be administered within 2 hours of exposure. Now, both OSHA and the CDC set standards to ensure health and safety, especially for us as surgical technologists and other healthcare workers exposed to blood-borne pathogens. Now, state practice acts governs how medications are ordered, dispensed, and administered. Now, while states must comply with their federal laws, they also set their own rules, like who can prescribe drugs. Well, physicians have prescribing authority, but can delegate this to others, i.e., physician's assistants. Medical licensing boards oversee who can prescribe and manage delegatory power. Us as surgical technologists, we assist in medication handling, acting as physician extenders. We're the physician's extra hands. But it is important to know your state's rules. Know your state's specific practice acts and do not rely on hearsay. There's that term, trust but verify. If your state's law don't address surgical technology, follow local policies. If policies are outdated, stay within their limits until they're updated. The bottom line, we as surgical technologists must know our state's practice acts and operate within legal standards. We have the NPSG, the National Patient Safety Goals. It established annually, focusing on issues like infection control and the Universal Protocol for preventing wrong site procedures or person surgery, as well as reducing medical errors. The Joint Commission in 2004 published a Do Not Use list of terms and abbreviations linked to medication errors. Now, as you're going through this mini session, I want you to think about the reason why the Joint Commission would even put this out. Think about why the Do Not Use list is one of the many key accomplishments. And you can see in table 2.2 that list. The Institute for Safe Medication Practices, or the ISMP, also publishes a list of error-prone abbreviations, symbols, and dosages to help reduce medication errors. Now, we have what's called the FDA oversight in medication development. The FDA regulates the medication development process to ensure safety and effectiveness. So, the Center of Drug Evaluation and Research, they're going to oversee the pharmaceutical industry. The FDA pregnancy, you have categories A and B. These are going to be the drugs that are considered safe for use during pregnancy. I want you to refer to Table 2.3 in your ebook just for more information on pregnancy categories. But there's a testing process. You have what's called preclinical testing, where they're testing on animals. You have 2 species of mammals, both genders. You're testing for toxicity and safe dosage. The testing begins with animals, okay? Only 5 in 5,000 drugs that enter preclinical testing progress to even reaching us in human trials. In phase 0, this is the exploratory trials. Human microdosing, designed to speed up development and identify drugs that could be promising. Phase 1 is clinical pharmacology. You're testing on individuals that are healthy. You determine toxicity and how much to dose humans. Phase 2, clinical investigation, given to patients with the disease. Now you're trying to determine the effectiveness and the optimum dosage. Phase 3 is your clinical trials. Now you have large-scale testing on patients. You have studies for safety, effectiveness, and side effects. And there's also double-blind studies that may be used, where half receive the drug and half receive a placebo, and then you compare and contrast your results. Phase 4, we're ready to market. You have ongoing monitoring after the drug is on the market, and the FDA collects safety and effectiveness data from physicians. Now, we get back to pharmacogenetics and pharmacoeconomics, or economics, okay? We start with pharmacogenetics, the study of genetic factors and predicting how an individual will respond to medication. This is important because people have different genetic makeups, leading to varied responses in drugs and therapies. It helps tailor treatments to individual patients. Pharmacogenetics or pharmacogenomics is the broader study of all genes that influence how medications behave. Nearly identical to pharmacokinetics, but it focuses on the human genome as a whole. It can create new medications and revive old ones for new purposes. So there are some advantages. Targeting specific diseases using drug markers. Reducing the costs and risks of clinical trials by focusing on personalized treatment. Facilitates the approval process of new drugs. But with every advantage, unfortunately, there are some disadvantages, like it being a complex science and high cost. Training professionals for this field is a challenge. Now, for more details, visit the National Institute of Health website at www.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. We get into drug naming and patents. So we have what's called our generic name. These are assigned by the drug company during development after FDA approval. You have your USP in F, which assigns the official name. So that's generic. Under your brand name, these are going to be often well-known, chosen by the manufacturer for marketing purposes. And then your patent. This is where drug companies receive exclusive rights to market a drug for 20 years. Now, patents are typically issued before clinical trials, so the effective patent period may be between 7 to 12 years. So just keep that in mind, okay? Between 7 to 12 years. We get into medical labeling. We have our brand name, like I mentioned, which is your trade, always capitalized and often in bold, okay? Registered with a @R to indicate the name and formula are protected. So you look at that right there, it's protected. As a surgical tech, we are the last checkpoint before the surgeon administers that medication. So that's why you're hearing me say we're trusting and we're verifying, because we're the last person. Hey doc, this is what I'm giving you. You have your generic name chosen by the manufacturer during development. Assigned the official name by USP&F usually the generic name. In lowercase letters, sometimes it'll appear in parentheses on labels, like in this case. Okay, and I love this because it kind of breaks it down. So you see the brand name and the generic name. This is not owned by any company at all. You have the chemical name. This describes the chemical formula and structure used primarily by chemists. So you're rarely going to find this on medication labels. So just keep that in mind. If you're looking for it, it's going to be a rare find. Okay. Again, we look at our brand name, manufacturer's name, we have our dosage strength. These items are usually the most prominent on the label. Okay? Your manufacturer, your brand, your generic, your dosage, and your form. You see, that's right there. As soon as you look, it's right there. We know that our dosage strength indicates the amount of medication in a specific unit. When we talk about our drug form or our medication form, you're looking at, is it a tablet? Is it liquid? Okay? Your supply dosage, usually marked by an X, measures how much is in this particular medication. Is it per tablet? Is it, okay? The total volume of the medication in a container is going to let you know. And then, how am I supposed to take this? Well, you're going to have additional information. You're going to have directions and use. Specifies how the drug should be administered. Is it orally? Is it intravenous? And then they have label alerts, kind of letting you know, hey, this needs to be refrigerated or it needs to be shaken well. You have your expiration date right over here, indicates the date by which the medication should be used or discarded. You'll notice a lot number or a control number right here, used to identify specific batches of medications. And then we have a barcode. The NDC is required by federal laws and appears on the label in the format of usually NDC and then the numbers. Okay. With the physician's desk reference, or the PDR, this is a common resource that provides information on thousands of medications, and it is updated annually. Contains the same information as the manufacturer's packages insert. The official medication list recognized by the U.S. government and widely used by drug companies and pharmacists is the USP&F. But there are other drug references like American Hospital Formulary Services, or AHFS, considered unbiased, not solely for pharmaceutical companies. There's facts and comparisons, where it includes comparison charts for prescription and OTC drugs. There's the medical letter, which provides unbiased drug information. There's the hospital pharmacist, which is a local expertise and resources, as well as the computerized databases like MicroDemex, ClinicSphere, and others provide extensive information on medications. And we cannot forget the good old internet. You have online resources, including government agency websites that offer valuable information. But it's really important to know that you always want to verify online information from at least 2 reliable sources. All right. This was your mini session for Chapter 2, Medication Development, Regulations, and Resources. Keep in mind that we will see some gems sprinkled about our live session. Have any questions? Please do not hesitate to reach out.